If you've been watching us for a while, you know we love Surfshark. Why do we love Surfshark? Because Surfshark is very good. Say it again, Surfshark. Why is it good, Brian? Well, it's a virtual private network that allows you to be anywhere in the world, virtually. It also allows you to browse the internet anonymously. For some of you out there buying things you don't really want people to know about. Do you know what I mean? Stuff that you won't want your neighbours opening. So Surfshark allows you to bypass geo-blockers. That means when you see a clip on Twitter and it says not available in your area, you can go, ha-ha! Gotcha! I'm anonymous. I can be anywhere, even in your bedroom. The newest feature to Surfshark is the Surfshark antivirus, which gives you security and it lets you have that peace of mind when you're online. Big addition. And not only that, you also get advanced malware protection.
Malware is basically like viruses and shit.
Malware is basically viruses and shit, if you're wondering. And unlike a lot of the competitors, one account with Surfshark gets you cover across unlimited devices that you own. So all that is included when you sign up using the code Geordie. You get 3 months extra for free and you get 83% off. What a deal. So with that said, enjoy the video.
At one time I was homeless. Instead of going home every night, there was no home to go to.
Life at home was very difficult. I grew up being abused.
I lost my belt. I lost respect. I embarrassed my family.
My vision was pretty much non-existent. I was able to just about scrape by the medicals.
When I come out, I have supreme confidence, but I'm scared to death. I'm afraid of everything.
I didn't care about living, I just wanted to die. I got up and I felt the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. I knew I was going to make a comeback.
Fighting, this was designed for me. This is what makes us who we are.
I'm the best!
Who the fuck is that?
I'm so far ahead. Scared. My dream, my vision for myself is to be the greatest martial artist to ever live.
I have always been a fighter. There's nothing I do better in this life than fighting.
There ain't never been a man that could better me. I was born to do this.
Nobody can get close. I'm the best fighter in the world.
I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been.
Welcome back to the Pain Game podcast. Today's guest is one of my favourite YouTubers, one of yours probably if you are into combat sports, YouTube, boxing, all of that. It's the W.A.D.E concept.
What's up, man? I am very excited to be here, very honored to be here. One thing before we do anything, I've been waiting so long to say just a couple things to you personally, and one of those being, I hope people realize you're the OG in this scene, and without True Geordie, without your entire team, you and Laz, there is no W.A.D.E concept. So I wanted to give you those flowers, man. You're the GOAT in this thing.
No, I appreciate it, mate, and I think you've done a great job. I was frustrated when I came into YouTube after a few years thinking, like, where's this new blood? I thought there'd be more. You know what I mean? I thought we would sort of... And here you are, mate. You're a fucking legend of what you've done, and there's a good reason why people are appreciating you is because you know boxing, but you understand YouTube, and like me, you've got a passion for both. So yeah, let's kick it off with Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. They've made it official today, thank God. Yeah, Big John, after the Logan Paul podcast, where we talked about, you know, this being negotiating and it looks like Tommy versus Jake's going to happen, and I think I might have been the one who mentioned Big John actually. Big John does a video right afterwards and says this:
people's mentioning me saying I'm saying there's negotiations in place for Tommy to fight this clown from overseas. It's not true. I'm having nothing to do with this at all, because it's a pile of shit. You know, I don't like anybody what's associated to those people over there. They're nothing but a pack of tossers, YouTubers, and I'm not interested in it one bit in any way, shape or form. So people, hear this. Don't keep using my name saying I'm saying this and I'm saying that, because it's not true. I want nothing to do with this farce at all. Not now, not ever. Have a pleasant evening.
The pleasant evening is beautiful, by the way.
Right at the end, have a pleasant
Nothing but a pack of tossers. I'm like, well, you've just called us a tosser, but I'll try and have a pleasant evening. I had any knowledge at all of John for sure being involved in any negotiations at all.
Right.
I heard it mentioned on Talk Sport, which is a sports show in the UK, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, you hear something and you just relay it to someone else, like, oh, I heard this.
Yeah.
And then John reacts the way John does. We will just get the next clip up, which was, just to be clear, 24 hours later. Just a day later.
Jake Paul team, and about this fight. Listen, mate, we want this fight with you. There's one problem. We can't travel. Tommy hasn't got a team. His team members are not allowed in America.
I thought there was no negotiations, John.
Yeah, I thought we were not interested. Some tossers.
Madison Square Garden, mate, ain't accessible for us, is it? And you know that.
It's not wheelchair accessible. They've got a disabled fella who they wanted to bring. It's not going to work for us.
What we'll do, we'll take less money and we'll fight you anywhere else in the world. Yeah? Because we can't travel. And Tommy, he's not going to start getting new teams in 4 weeks and getting different things and other strange people involved, because that don't work.
You can't have any strangers showing up. It didn't work that way.
Say no to strangers. Come on now.
There is guidance, especially me, and you're talking to me now because I'm in charge, of Tommy's career.
Well, a day ago you told us it wasn't fucking happening, so I don't know who's told you you're in charge, but I just don't trust you now. So I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry.
He's coming, bro. He's coming for you.
I was a tosser yesterday. God knows what I'm going to beat him. He's probably going to say how nice I am tomorrow. He's just changes so. It's like the weather, isn't he? Oh, good. Oh, fuck me. I hope he doesn't hit me.
To be honest with you, at this moment in time, the 6th of August, is being very poorly promoted, mate, isn't it? It's shocking, and I think there's a better job can be done of it, to be fair with you. It's all rush.
I don't actually disagree with him on that one thing.
I don't either, though.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, Tommy and John have been silent the whole time.
Yeah,
You're talking about bad promotion.
Yeah.
It's been both ways. You just not even a day ago said that you weren't going to negotiate with these tossers, and then you come out and go, well, this promotion's been terrible.
I mean, like, I think the whole idea was an announcement to be made, and John took it upon himself to sort of put, you know what I mean? The cart before the horse there. It's like,
well, that's been the story of John this entire build up here.
I wake up this morning to another text from my manager saying that Tommy Fury is pulling out of the fight. We agreed to all of the terms. Everything is ready to go. We're 45 days away from the fight. We agreed to his $2 million purse. We agreed to
by the way,
crazy money.
About testing, extra flights, extra rooms, extra tickets to the fight. We're scheduled to have a press conference next week in New York. His whole entire team was like, yeah, everything's good. We're signing the contract today. It kept on getting pushed. Till now. What's the excuse? Oh, I can't come and I can't do it because my dad can't be there with me during the...
Not a good look. That is, it's really, yeah.
Tommy, your dad has been banned from the United States for 15 years. You've known this the whole entire time. He's a criminal. He's not allowed in. When he fought...
He is a criminal part.
He's a criminal. He's not allowed in. I love the way he just rolls that out there. He's just a criminal. He's not allowed in.
Anthony Taylor in Cleveland. Neither Tyson nor your dad were there with you in your U.S. debut.
Facts.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you need your team with you? That doesn't make any fucking sense. I will agree to not have my team around me during the fight week. I will agree to not fight with my coaches in my corner. We could both fight solo, dolo.
Like, I know Jake's polarizing, and I know people don't like him, bro. But after that, I think, and I seen you were pretty much the same. Like, it was the comments on all of the boxing channels that uploaded that those same channels, like IFL, that normally you'd see the comments just trashing Jake. It was a unanimous, flawless victory, 10-7. Like, everyone was like, Tommy Fury needs to sign this fucking deal now, because if not, he is being punked by that YouTube kid who nobody respects. And if your legacy is pulling out of a Jake Paul fight twice, you might as well go home.
Yeah, this is not for you. If that's the way it goes for Tommy, it's not for him. But luckily, like, you know, Tommy, it's been so weird. You told me, you know, you're like, hey, let's do the pain game, and you said, let's talk about this Jake Paul thing, and you put the John Fury show, right? And that's what this has become. the John Fury show.
Yeah.
And to a degree that's like, it's not even involving Tommy. Like Tommy is having to fight and claw and scratch for his own breath. Like he's not even a part of this at this point. It's Jake and John. And it's like,
John might as well lace the gloves up and get in there himself at this stage because he's become so integral. And I do think that his involvement with Tyson's career, remember when Tyson had his uncle training him and then he went to, obviously, Ben and then now to Kronk. It's surprising that they haven't done the same with Tommy. I do think John is struggling to let go of his son and let him fly. And when you've got John doing a story that day saying, I'm in charge. And then later that day, Jake Paul punks Tommy out and makes him look, bad, real bad.
Yeah, it wasn't good. No, not at all.
And then Tommy immediately on social media goes, I'm taking the fucking fight.
Yeah.
He's not listening to John. And it does feel like there's two versions of reality in that family. There's what's happening where John wants Tyson in, Morecambe, and he doesn't want him out in Vegas, and he wants to train Tommy, and then there's what's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you did see a little bit of that when Jake was mouthing off to John in the press conference, and how the two boys were sort of giggling like, Dad, what is he?
Yeah, there's the old man.
Yeah. Like... So, yeah, I think we're kind of all getting into some weird family dynamic here where that's partly of the issue.
Yeah. I think that John is in his own head a bigger part of this than he really is, right? And this is what you talked about with Tyson. Even back when John was talking about how they weren't going to negotiate with Deontay Wilder and they weren't going to take that fight because Tyson wasn't ready. And then Tyson and Frank and Bob were like, yeah, no, we're going to do that.
Dad. Yeah,
sure. For John, it feels like a lot of the same stuff is happening to him again. And I think because maybe Tommy is his last kind of project, right? Because Tyson got away from him, got to, like you said, went with Ben, then went with Sugar Hill and took it to the next level. Tommy should be doing the same. I said it in my video, Tommy needs to get away from John. Especially in the decision-making department. It's not a good thing to have John popping off and making you and your legacy look bad by going, I'm in charge of this. Like, And Tommy has to come out and be like, no. Like, it's bad.
It's tricky for John because I get you're trying to protect your son, and I actually respect that, and I'm sure that to the best of his ability, that's what he thinks he's doing here. And like I've seen him break things down before and predict things. I'm like, all right, you're a smart boxing brain. There's no doubt about that. It's everything else. I get why.
The pride, honestly, it's his pride.
Yeah,
right?
when he talks about the Fury family, I get from those gypsy roots, like if you've watched any of those sort of bare knuckle documentaries, it isn't about the favourite son as it is about the last name. I remember people like the Joyces and all of that. You've seen them, like they're iconic, but like at the same time, like the rest of the world, the boxing world, we don't care about the Furies, as John calls them. We care about Tyson Fury. And I do think John's smart enough to kind of know in reality, none of the rest, no one cares. But he's clinging on as best as he can to sort of build this sort of thing in his head of like, my son is the best fighter who ever lived, and now my other son, and this, that, and the other. It's like,
I feel like he has dug Tommy into a place and put him, and listen, Jake is a great narrative spinner. He's one of the best at doing it. And he even put out a video just a couple minutes ago talking about how this is the greatest challenge of his life. He's fighting a Fury. He's not talking about Tommy specifically, but he's using that, invoking that last name because John has done this and put this pressure on Tommy and said, the Furies are fighting men. We're not, no one can beat us.
And I think that pressure is actually creating a bit of a problem. The injury in camp was partly down to that pressure. We've seen Tyson hammering him in the ribs with that medicine ball.
Absolutely.
Not necessary, by the way. Just not necessary. And I think the pressure can make you do things like that in camp where you're so worried about losing that you overtrain and push it to the limit, and then this potential pullout again. If whatever John says about Jake Paul, there's respect there that he is a threat to his son, because you wouldn't be considering not making a fight happen twice if you had no respect for him.
Yeah, and that's the part that no one's really saying, and he's saying it without saying the words. Is that there's something there, right? He does see something in Jake where he's like, let's try to play some mind games back here. Let's try to like hold this thing off as much as possible, get him uncomfortable, because we're not as comfortable as we're saying going into this thing that Tommy's just going to walk through him.
And Tommy's going to be in that press conference without his dad. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. That one's one I said in my video. I'm so interested to see how Tommy acts without John there, right? As that filter. Because John can kind of be the wild, kind of say whatever that. I mean, he told Jake that Tommy was going to bend his girl over. So it's like he's not going to be there doing that.
Do it like a dog.
Do it like a dog. So it's not going to be that. So I want to see how Tommy, because Jake's going to be goofy. He's going to say, goofy stuff. He's going to try to get under Tommy's skin. But like you talked about, this is the best fight you can make right now in the YouTube scene. Like skill for skill. Like you said, pro boxing, YouTube boxing, this blend of things that we just haven't seen yet. And I think a lot of people are still on that side of pure boxer, YouTuber, and we haven't really moved off those lines. So we're finally going to get some clarity there, which I'm so excited for.
But the problem I've got is when everyone starts saying Jake Paul isn't a boxer and Tommy is, and then I look at the level of opponent Tommy has fought, there's not, I think like one or two fights at most for Tommy where someone's really come to win.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of that ginger kid who gave him a good go.
Jeremy Grant kid,
yeah, he was solid, but like
he came after Tommy too, and he put Tommy on the back foot, and that was something you hadn't seen.
I think he was lacking the confidence a little bit to really believe he could win, but he went after him a bit, and I think that's one of the issues I see coming into this fight is Jake Paul, whether or not it was reality, every fight he had felt like a step up, and every fight felt like an added sense of risk there. And especially with W.A.D.E, he had a legit test in front of him where it was difficult. And I don't think Tommy has had anyone in there with him where there was that element of doubt of, I might not have enough for this guy. If you're in that situation for the very first time and you're main eventing MSG and you're in there with a kid who is so used to being the center of attention, not even talking about the skill, but it could have that McGregor effect that we used to see McGregor where when he would fight a guy who was not used to the level of press, who wasn't used to being main event and all the added pressure, we might see, even if Tommy is a better boxer, we might see him crumble.
And Jake has thrived in these. He's main evented 2 cards now. Back to back, right? Well, I guess he's main evented more than that, but in a big stadium with people, main evented, and now it's going to be Tommy's first time in MSG in front of all these people. No, like he said, no team there. It's his Jake Paul, a guy that just picked at you for the last year. I don't know how mentally he goes into that, having never done it, having never fought for this amount of time in his life, and just in that big scene, what happens to him mentally? I don't know. I'm not saying that he can't do it. I think anybody, if you just take a look at it and go, okay, it's a fight, and you can convince yourself to block things out, then it is just a fight, right? And I don't put too much into it, but when it's your first time, it's the mecca of boxing. You're going in there against a guy that you've talked so much about being just a YouTuber and having nothing for you, and that hitting the pads with your dad is harder. It's going to be a real awakening to see that crowd for him. And I that's the biggest issue if you're a Tommy Fury fan.
Mentally, I 100% give the edge to Jake Paul in terms of him being at home in that arena. Well,
he's done it, right? He's been there.
And this is when the chips have been down, and make no mistake, that last fight, I did not think he looked good, but he dug deep and he pulled that knockout out the bag. So even when he hasn't performed well, he slept a guy who's really, we all thought he didn't have the right to be in there with, So normally if I watch a guy fight and then I watch another guy fight, I can sort of visualize how this is going to look. But I am struggling a bit with that because their competition is so hard to grade. Jake's fought an athlete in Nate Robinson. Yes, he fought an overweight fat wrestler in Ben. And then finally W.A.D.E, who W.A.D.E didn't look like a good boxer, but is a tough guy.
I guess what people want to know is, can Jake fight a boxer? And when they ask that question, what they mean is, can Jake fight someone that moves like a boxer, that has experience in a boxing ring, that throws like a boxer, defends like a boxer, that's going to turn up volume, that's going to be able to throw more than one punch at a time and then follow up? And Tommy does answer some of those questions, right? What I think Jake doesn't want to necessarily get into, even though I've heard, and I've talked with BJ about them throwing 80 to 100 punches around.
Where was that in the last fight, Because this is the thing. The BJ Flores thing, for a good while, I was like, this guy, He's good talker. I'm seeing the improvements in every fight from Jake. And then we had the Woodley fight, and I felt like Jake fought with more fear in the Woodley fights than I'd seen from him. Like his inability to fight in range, and when Woodley entered that range, instead of popping that jab out, he really reverted to tucking his chin down and throwing those big overhands, and a lot of clinching, just not able to control the fight with his jab. It was a step backwards, and not just a little one, actually. It felt like that last fight, it was god awful. If I'm being brutally honest, it was fucking terrible. And that knockout saved it. And for me, I think if BJ Flores wants to keep his job, we need to see a big step in the right direction in this fight, because if he fights like he fought against Woodley, aside from that knockout punch, there was nothing there that was on the level of what I've seen from Tommy.
Yeah. No, listen.
But in previous fights, like the Gibb fight, I'd seen a lot of good signs. You know what I mean? But I don't know what it was about the Woodley fight, but he just, in either of them, he did not look composed.
When you talk about Tyron Woodley and the differences you saw with him, even in the first to second fight, the danger that's present when Tyron Woodley's in front of you is completely different than a guy like Gibb, right? So where Gibb could come forward and did hit Jake with a big left hook, and it didn't really faze him, right? He didn't fear that power.
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley, a different story. Obviously, when you've been hit by it and you get put through the ropes in that second fight, you know there's a present danger, right? And not making excuses for Jake, but he did take it on 12 days. But the problem is Tommy is a volume striker. And Jake hasn't seen a volume striker that can put him on his heels yet. Yes, Gibb tried, but he didn't respect Gibb, right? There was no respect there. Tommy's going to try to. He's going to try to come forward and throw combination punching at Jake. Now, what you said makes a lot of sense. Can Jake establish the jab early? If not, and Tommy's able to get Jake clinching continuously over and over. And if Jake has great timing. So if Tommy does come in a little out of control, overshoots, the big right hand, we've seen it. It's there. It's one of Tommy's biggest weaknesses.
This possibly works in Jake's favor. The fact that because Woodley was biting on feints left, right, and center, so he wasn't there a lot of the time. Whereas Tommy is going to be more comfortable, more confident, and more like a boxer. So he's not going to be out of range anywhere near as much. So it could set the right hand up nicely, as we've seen with Tommy, does get caught by that right hand. It's just like Anthony Joshua found out against Usyk. If you allow the boxer to steal 3 rounds early and start racking them up, you're then chasing, and then it becomes a whole different kind of fight.
And not to say that Jake can't, but you don't want to go volume for volume with Tommy, in my opinion. Yeah. And if he does get down early, say Tommy steals 2 quick ones, fighting him from behind is going to eat at that gas tank. Tommy's got a great jab too. Like Jake's got a good jab, Tommy's got a great jab. So Tommy can coast behind that jab if he needs to, right? So it's
Tommy knows how to manage a fight well. Absolutely. I will give him that. Like in the fights I've seen him in, but if I'm Tommy's camp, that power difference between him and Jake is on my mind, because
I can honestly say Jake's a cruiser. He can crack, and that's something Tommy hasn't seen yet.
Yeah,
so have to respect it.
So they're both going to see things that they've not seen yet, and that's where the excitement comes into for us as fans, because we don't know how they're going to react. We don't know how Jake is going to be composed when he's got a guy popping that jab and controlling the ring and having that IQ, but we also don't know if Tommy can dig deep when he takes a big shot and control himself and get himself out of danger, and we don't know what his chin's like. What we do know is Tommy does not have a lot of power. Like, we just know that now. There's so many rounds where he should have gotten kids out of there. And then after that last fight, when he walks into the locker room and Tyson's like, well, you nearly got him out. Like, fucking hell. It's not what you want to hear from big bro, like world champion,
It's going to have to be Jake getting out to a good start. The last couple of fights, Jake has been a slow starter. He's going to have to get out to a quicker start.
He's mentioned something about his legs feeling like jelly and not feeling...
And that's another thing, too. Jake's been in this now. This is twice he's main evented. He should know how this feels. And we shouldn't just look at Tommy and be like, is the moment big for Tommy? Jake has even admitted that the moment has maybe gotten to him a little bit in these last 2. And then he settles in and he has a good fight, especially the Tyron 1 fight. I thought he had a way better showing. But he has to get out to a much faster start because Tommy will. The bell will ring and Tommy will meet him and he'll start working the jab. Like immediately. It's like clockwork for those guys. And this is why we talk about a boxer.
Yeah, I think Jake has to roughhouse this guy. Absolutely. I think ironically, there's been a lot of talk about AJ doing the similar thing. Like it's power versus boxing, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like he's got to roughhouse him. We've seen when Tommy has struggled, they've just not followed in after they've hurt him a little bit. I think he's been let off. But when I look at his performances against was it Anthony Taylor who he fought in Cleveland?
Fought Anthony Taylor in Cleveland, yep.
That didn't look great. Like, I mean, Anthony Taylor it was
definitely a tricky fight for him for whatever reason. I think we've been talking about, part of it was he was in complete new territory versus a guy he really didn't know what he was getting into. And secondly, when the fight started, it looked like he wanted to be pretty much anywhere else. He just could not get any type of momentum going. It looked like he didn't really even try to. It was like he was just kind of there and, okay, I'll work my jab and I'll throw a couple of these. And then after he got hit with a couple right hands, he's like, you know what? Let me just coast this jab to a victory.
I just feel like Jake hits so much harder than Tommy.
Correct.
When that first punch lands properly, we're going to get such a good reading from Tommy about how he feels about that. Let's talk about Logan. Obviously, we had him on the podcast. Yeah. He mentioned he wants to fight Dylan Dennis. We don't know if that's MMA or boxing. I imagine it's boxing.
Yeah.
Dylan got a bit... I mean, naturally, Dylan does what... he tweeted something, which is pretty much all he's done in the last 3 fucking years. And he also said that he wanted to fight me, which I thought was fucking hilarious.
You've been boxing, though.
Bro, I'm just a podcaster. Albeit a podcaster who would beat the shit out of Dylan Dennis. I am not actually a fighter, though. Like, in my head, I'm like, bro, like... You've got a fine amount of time that people are going to give a shit what he's got to say.
Right.
And when he's pinpointing his little tweet at me, I'm like, bro, you're wasting your 5 minutes here. Like, fixate that on Logan and manage your career in a way that's less of an imbecile than what you've been behaving. Like, this guy is all of the credit he once had for being the up and coming student at Straight Blast Gym and the jiu-jitsu wizard and, you know, a real one to watch. That's just died a death. And watching him get choked out by a fucking chocolatier part-time bouncer, I'm like, bro, you're now coming after podcasters. You got big problems with your... I'm doing good in my career. You're not doing much. Like, come on.
Yeah. As far as the fight between him and Logan goes, you know, I really don't know what to say about it.
Have you watched Dylan hit pads or anything like that?
I've seen. I mean, we've obviously all seen Dylan in his 2 fights at Bellator. I've seen him on the bag. I've seen him doing, you know, little bits and pieces he'll put out on Instagram. I definitely.
I see very poor hands out of this kid. Like, he's not. Do you know how some people, like Ben Askren, for example, they're great grapplers, not punchers.
It's so funny.
There's just nothing behind it. I said
this in my video. I ended up not putting it in, but I was like, you know, he looks like a younger Askren a little bit. But yeah, no.
He really does move. Like, when I watch him punch, I'm like, there's just, like, there's nothing there. There's just no snap. There's no power. Like, he's in trouble in his career generally because the minute he struggles to get someone to the ground... even when he's on the ground, as we see him with the chocolatier, but like, you know, this, no wonder he's sort of tweeting from the comfort of his own home because he knows, like, the minute he goes out there and gets exposed for lacking in a massive quality that you need in fighting, all of this Dylan Dennis being a thing is over immediately.
Yeah. I think if Logan does go through with that fight, and they've been talking about it for years, and Dylan, you know, talks like he wants that fight. I mean, obviously I favor Logan. Logan's been doing this. Logan's a really, really high level athlete outside of boxing, in my opinion. I think he could have done a lot of different things. So when he got into boxing, supernatural ability. I think he is just a guy that picks up the sport really quickly. And Dylan just, I don't know honestly, you know what I think what's going on with Dylan is I don't think that knee surgery has been fully rehabbed to the point where he is confident in doing anything yet. People forget, and this is not like a oh, like, let's feel sorry for Dylan. But he had a full knee, like, reconstruction, LCL, ACL, completely blown out in 2020, right? And I feel like it has taken him a lot longer to get back than he realized.
He looks a bit bloated when you see him. He looks like a puffy, overweight, like welterweight now. He doesn't look in shape, and that's obviously down to you're injured. You can't do the cardio.
He's talked about how he eats like trash too. He's not ever, like, he's talked about it in videos. He's not a like super healthy dieter either, but I think that's a big reason that he's not saying it. But I think that knee rehab has not gone as well as he wants. And it's an ACL at the end of the day, you know?
He hasn't fought in 3 fucking years, mate.
I know. I know.
I can't, like, he doesn't realize how lucky he is that people like Logan even mention his name. Like, you fought a couple of bums 3 years ago. You used to spar Conor McGregor. And this is the thing, like, I know I made a joke earlier on that, but, like, I don't give a fuck about this guy. Like, I don't hate him. I don't dislike. Like, I'm just like, I laughed when I seen him say that. Like, it's nothing, right? But in my head, I'm like, bro, you've got your window is closing, and 3 years without a fight. Like, I don't give a fuck what injury, what surgery you've had. This should be sorted by now. You've got. Like, your body is probably giving up on you if you're still unable to get in a competitive ring or cage at this point. Like, what are you doing? And he's becoming that guy who talks about fighting but never actually achieves anything. He's in danger of not being a has-been. He's in danger of being a never was, because like, even Jake Shields replies to his tweet underneath after he's tweeted about me going, I guess you won't sign the contract to fight him either, will you? Because Jake Shields is supposed to have a fight. I'm like, bro, you're talking about me. You've got pro fighters who want to have a thing with you. This is never going to happen, bro. I'm like, you know, what the fuck's wrong with your brain?
Say what you will. Dylan is very good at using his social media presence, whatever that may be, whatever it is. It's not obviously as big as some people's is, but he's good at using it to keep himself, like you said, relevant. Now,
he's very fortunate that Conor McGregor graced him with his presence, with his life, because otherwise, like, he'd be nobody at all.
No, that's absolutely true. Like,
and you can tell him and McGregor have not hung out for fucking the longest time, and yet he's still posting pictures of him and Conor as if they were like hanging out last week. And Conor's like, I'm not liking that. I don't even fucking know you anymore, bro. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's hanging on to that like the guy who like used to be in the band. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's it's awkward, man.
And drummer that never was.
I look at him and honestly, like, when he's sort of dissing me, I'm like, bro, you're pathetic. Like, you actually have a career that's going up in smoke in front of your very eyes. And I know you're not making good money. I know you're not achieving anything. You're Logan Paul would be the best thing that he could ever fucking hope to happen.
Yeah, of course.
Win or lose. Like, it's the same as Tommy. You ain't getting a couple of million again. Like, grab this. Buy, sell a house, bro, because the next 2 million ain't going to be there for a while, especially after Logan embarrasses him, which I believe would happen in a ring.
Yeah, let's actually talk about if they did want to, you know, actually get into a fight and Dylan showed up. Logan, like I said, skill wise, the better boxer, no doubt about it. The only thing, and this is just because of when Logan feels threatened, I want to see that evolution of when Logan feels threatened, how does he fight, right?
KSI, there was the power threat. With Floyd, there was the skill threat and the cardio threat. And he was in a negative state of mind in both of those fights, I think, by comparison to where if he fights Dylan, he needs to be the predator, not the prey. He needs to look at Dylan like dinner and go and fucking get on him straight away and start smashing that jab in his face and actually use the gifts that we see him, because he ain't Logan, as good as he is. Like, and this is why I sort of suggested the winner of McBroom versus Gibb. I'm not saying McBroom or Gibb will beat Logan, but Logan has picked fights that were obviously not the best for him. He hasn't won one. So you the part of the Jake thing that is he's made statements and he's grown as a fighter, and I think Logan has grown, but he needs to get in there with someone who he knows he should beat, and he needs to be the alpha mentally.
We haven't seen Like if we're talking mentality, we haven't seen Logan in the same mentality. Like he'll feint it. He'll say, you know, how confident he is. And in the Floyd fight, I think he found a little bit of that toward the end. He was like, hey, I'm still here. Like you couldn't get rid of me. But we haven't really seen that confidence level since KSI won in the first couple of rounds in that fight. And you were right there in person to see it, right? And
good shout, bro. Yeah, I remember that because this was the thing is I was sort of thinking, okay, KSI's the one with the experience. He looked good against Joe Weller. And those first 2 rounds, Logan, when he was popping that jab and JJ's head was going back, I was like, fucking hell, this kid is good. And then, but the mentality... and the gas tank ultimately failed him, and it was JJ who had the more aggressive nature, and that's obviously what carried him through both of those fights. But he needs to get that. He needs to go in there and go, I'm going to rip this fucking guy's head off. And the thing about Dylan or whoever he chooses is he needs to get in there soon, because Logan seems to take long periods between boxing, and he clearly, as people have commented on in the podcast, loves the good life. You know, I don't know what he has going on, but he looked like he was on hard drugs. I was like, oh man, this guy is doing it different out in London. Nah, and fair play. Everybody wants to have a good time. I'm not, do what you want to do, but I was like, oh, he's living it up. No, and I mean, like, I genuinely think that is just Logan on like a boozy night, to be honest. But like, I look at Logan and I'm like, if I had your talent and I had your money, I'd have a gym built on the side of my house. I'd have the fucking 100%. Black belts turning up, teaching me 100%. Kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. Because he has all of the skills to be an MMA fighter or to do whatever a boxer or do whatever he wants. Like, I think he may be the most naturally talented of all of these guys.
Yep. But I said this too. I saw it on someone put a little tweet up. They were like, who's got the most potential for boxing? And it was like, it's easily Logan. And
that's kind of what I was thinking about the McBroom-Gibb fight, is if one of them looks really good and the next fight and proves that they're a legit test. I know Logan feels like he's above sort of that YouTube standard now from fighting Mayweather, but if you haven't won a fight, you're not above anything. You've got to get a win. Fair. Yeah, I feel like you've got to get some wins under your belt, just like Jake did. And especially if McBroom wins, there's a fight where, why not? You know what I mean? Unless KSI takes it. But let's talk about KSI is coming back, and allegedly it's Alex Wasabi. I don't really see who else it could be at this point. How are we feeling just generally about the return right now?
I am very hopeful. Just based off who he's with over at Shoot Fighters in London. I'm sure you know a couple guys in that gym. I'm sure you've had some conversations. I think you've talked to MVP before.
I haven't actually, but I've watched the guy and he's silky. We see sort of Anderson Silva like shapes.
I was going to say the second coming, man. The second coming.
He's no joke. He is fun to watch, but they don't all look like him. But one thing I do know is Leon has seen him, and Leon gave an interview and he said the style's different. So what we've been hearing from JJ is that he's going to come out differently. I think a lot of people have been skeptical of that, but Leon's confirmed it. The style is different.
Yeah.
What is it? We don't know. But what we do know is JJ's style against FaZe Sensei was bite down on the gum shield, get on the inside and work the body and dirty box you in the corner and up against the ropes and that, and just keep that pressure on. So I can only assume this is a bit more of a traditional, use the jab, bit more like the Joe Weller thing.
I did see, watching him in the Joe Weller lead up and even a little bit after him just kind of goofing off, a lot of a lower hand style, a lot more loose, flowy, straight punches, not a lot of overhands. And I think if we can get to simplify the big things, like the big things everybody wants to talk about, his hands high, everything. If we can just simplify things, where is he comfortable? If his hands are a little lower, listen, I'm not a big proponent of it with guys that are new, because you leave yourself open to getting hit with big shots. If you're not quick and when your gas tank is not as great, your hands aren't going to be able to move up and down as quickly as you think they are. But if he's comfortable and he's throwing straight punches, I think that is where JJ is going to have to be if he's going to continue this, right? I'm not overlooking Alex, but if this is going to be something he continues to do, and let's say he goes in and gets a victory, if it is Alex, you can't rely on the fact that you're a dog. You can't just rely on it, right? It's a great thing to have, but technique has to be there. So
the dog is usually your ace card, isn't it? The dog is last resort.
Exactly.
Whereas with JJ, in the past, he's done like 1 or 2 rounds, went, yeah, fuck this. Like,
cracks the neck out. All right,
I remember talking Derek, Vidal's dad, and apparently after that second round, he just goes to Vidal, do you want to fucking win this fight or not? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what we need to do, so get into him. Fight him. Fuck this shit. Fight him, you know? Yeah. But it should be last resort. And the thing with Alex is, the reason I knew Alex was going to beat Deji is because the kid is an athlete. And obviously I don't mean like literally, but like he is so fit. And you could see on those training videos, you were like, you can't fake that, you know? And we don't know how much he's grown, because I thought he showed some ring IQ. He showed he could jab and move. He showed he could control the fight. And this is the same kid who basically got slapped up by Fuzi in the first ever fight he had. But he showed that like there's more to him than what we originally thought. And I think the part of the issue here is it's your first fight back. You're loading all of the pressure on yourself. Yeah. And the thing about JJ is there's nobody better at handling crowds, because the kid performs in front of the biggest crowds in the UK all the time.
He just did like a show with 80K or something, right?
It's just insane. So I have confidence in him in handling the pressure, but when you've got that little fly buzzing around that ring, and you're sort of, as you said, a couple of rounds go by, you start struggling, frustration starts building. People all came here to see you knock someone out. We've seen even Vidal Riley in his first UK fight felt that pressure a little bit. And this is a guy who's won it all at amateur. You start tensing up, you start throwing and snatching at it and not playing your normal game, basically. And that's where we might see him revert to windmill.
Oh, it's coming out. It'll come out. At some point, whether he gets frustrated with Alex because he can't get him out, and I'm not saying that he can't, but if that happens, or just as the start of the fight goes and that dog, quote unquote dog, comes out, right? And he just has to calm it down. Like, he gets excited. We saw one of the funniest things I've ever seen. KSI getting ready for the Logan 2 fight, and he's in the corner, and then he just starts screaming. He's and Vidal's like, chill. Like, he's just, sometimes it happens to you. You get so excited. So I do expect that, especially early from him, but I want to see him calm it down. While yes, Alex does show a decent amount of footwork. I've actually talked with Alex on my podcast, and he's talking. I think
he came across really well on that interview. I watched that. Yeah. And that was another thing where I was like, okay, he's winning this, because he's a realist. I think if he plays that way with JJ, it could work well for him. That he's not faking not matching, and trying to be too theatrical. Yeah.
Because KSI is gonna bring a little bit of that, right? He's a showman at the end of the day. He's gonna bring that energy. He's gonna do some things.
I will never forget, by the way, I was thinking about this the other day. KSI versus Logan won the press conference. When JJ comes out, puts that blonde wig on and goes to work and just starts roasting Logan. This is after Logan had just been off the back of the Japan video.
Yeah.
It was one of the most like cauldron-like atmospheres. Like, he can create a crowd mentality where he just gets the entire room chanting, "You suck dick."
He had the room shaking for sure.
It was. I was just sitting there like, what the fuck is going on here? And Logan's like,
it froze him.
Well, Logan wasn't happy with me. Obviously, this was 4.5 years ago now, and understandably so, because I left him hang out to dry there. But I was. I just remember being like, there was no stopping JJ when he's in that mind state and he's got the crowd behind him, and his star is even bigger now. He is even more confident now. I think that's one of the things to Alex is he is going to mentally, if he has any chance in this fight, he has to make himself accept what's coming, make peace with it, and go, I'm going to be the bitch a little bit here in some of the, but I've got to keep my state of mind calm, and I've got to enjoy the process and go with it, and not let it swallow me, and accept what this is going to be.
And he had a great test run for it, right? Maybe not on the same level, but he's already been to London. he's already handled the heckling. He's already been in front of, that crowd telling him, who are you? That whole thing. He's done it. And
he
not
called
to the
him,
level
didn't he call him Big Deji or something like that?
Big Deji on my.
I have to say, right, small
Not
W
bad.
there. I was like,
Not bad.
It's quite funny that if you were gonna. And that, far be it from me to start giving out tips, but like I do feel like this kid needs it because JJ's going to bring the heat. So if you've got a few little, look, I already took one of you out, like whatever. This is just a bigger version. Like play with that because you're going to need everything, bro.
Watching him get riled up at Alex just beating Deji and then calling him Big Deji, it does show that there's a lot of fire there, right? The KSI
this
wants
is
to
old
prove a
school
point.
as well. The videos back and forth
back.
between these two, they're years old. Like like he's done like laughing at Alex Wasabi compilations at this point. So like,
the bottom line, in my opinion, is KSI is going to have to show not us, not even Alex, but himself, that he can remain in a composed state, not freak out, not go with the windmills, not get overexcited, because there is a path to victory for Alex. How small it is, I'll let you guys be the judge, but there is a path to victory, and it mostly relies on the fact that KSI does something to give openings to Alex.
And we've talked a bit about state of mind, about like that fight or flight mentality of fighters and YouTube guys trying to become fighters. And that's why Jake and KSI make such a dream matchup for us, because we know when things get tough, they both start trying to kill you, not trying to defend themselves. Whereas Logan, more defensive minded. So with JJ, if Alex can create that pressure on him to finish him and make the narrative, when you're going to finish me, JJ? When you're going to finish me? I'm still here. And I remember watching Dustin Poirier in the fight against Conor McGregor, the second one, and you could see at the end of the first round, when Dustin started gaining in confidence, and he's like, I got you. And you could see Conor like, why are you still here?
It was a complete switch.
And then if you get JJ into that reckless frame of mind, and you're Alex Wasabi, you're on your bike, you're probably carrying less weight than him, so you're pumping the jab, running around, just trying to get out of each round with those 10 points.
Yeah.
That's the kind of environment he has to create in order to survive JJ's power.
Yeah, no, let's make no mistake about it. This is KSI's fight to win, right? This is 100%. Not only, I don't want to say set up, but not only does he have almost all of the advantages that he needs, size, experience, even I would say ability, but there is a path to victory, and you have to not only take Alex Wasabi seriously, but you have to show more than you've shown, right? Not just for this fight, but for the future.
We've never seen KSI knock someone out cold. And assuming this is 10 outs, gloves, no head guards,
it's going
KSI
down.
needs a knockout. And I say that because if people are to get really invested in the Jake versus KSI fight, depending on what happens between Tommy and Jake, because that could change the trajectory of how people view Jake. But I think we all agree a prime Jake Paul knocks out Alex Wasabi the same way he knocked out everybody else he got in the ring with. So I think that would go a long way for JJ, and also it would give him a massive confidence boost of, I've been in there, I've knocked him out, I've got a new style, I'm knocking people out now, and I think that's what we need from him. Okay, bro, we'll do some quote-unquote real boxing.
Let's talk about it, man.
And some MMA.
Heck yeah.
We see in the press conference Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk 2. What did you make of it?
I feel like if you're AJ right now, this guy took pretty much everything from you. And I know he tries to keep it even kill, and now he's with Robert Garcia, and they've changed some things up. That's what I like. What I don't like is him sounding like a self-help book at the press conference and talking about brownies and here's my dietitian plan. Like, I don't understand this. And it's not to say that he's not going to show up and have, a completely new, like, just go after AJ or go after Usyk and eat him up, like, to the body, eat him alive. But these pressers, they don't make me confident in AJ, man.
I think Eddie Hearn is very lucky that he is selling this fight on ability and what happened in the first fight than personality. You basically had Eddie going, and then you did this, AJ, and then that happened. Didn't you, AJ? Didn't you? And then AJ's like, yeah, I mean, stay humble, yo. Stay humble, stay hungry. Like, it's, you know.
And then you got Usyk on the other side is just, you know, he's a little playful, but he looks like a killer over there.
He's a fucking machine. And then you've got like, it felt like a much more of a PR exercise for Saudi Arabia or the kingdom than it was for any of us to get interested in this fight whatsoever. It's like, and I think the pressure is on AJ so much this time. This is do or die. It's kill or be killed, actually. In the ring, especially, I think you have to be ready to unload the clip and hope you've got him out of there afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, listen, AJ, we all the way back to the Klitschko fight. We know that AJ's had some gas tank issues. You know, Klitschko predicted it. Put it on the USB stick. We remember. He's like, I got the prediction right here, and he basically said the prediction was AJ was going to try to come after him, gas out, and he was going to knock him out. Didn't happen that way. Close. And we haven't seen really AJ go to that next. We've seen that AJ. We've seen a little bit of maybe a regression when it came to the motivation for the Andy Ruiz fight, and then remotivated and stayed behind his jab, right? But we haven't seen, is he going to go take someone's heart again? Has he gone out there and wanted to go and you know, meet that challenge by going, all right, we're here now. It's mano y mano. I'm going to take your heart. He hasn't done that since the Klitschko fight to me. It's
ironic because it's kind of the opposite of what we've just been saying about KSI in a way of like mentally we need the killer back. Yeah. We don't want him controlled. We don't want him. We want him controlled to know when to pull the trigger. But once you pull the trigger, you got to go absolute beast mode on him. Like you can't allow Usyk to survive, because if he survives that barrage and you've unloaded the clip as AJ does, you're a sitting fucking duck then, and Usyk will finish him.
Yeah,
it won't be like Klitschko, where Klitschko is 42 years old and he also needs 4 rounds to get his breath back after dropping you. This guy was doing, I think they said he was doing 4-minute rounds with like 30 seconds rest in between. Yeah. And when I watched the AJ fight back, you know, I'll give credit. AJ hung in there with him, like in terms of pace of fight. Like that was he was so fit, but even still, because he played his game and the instructions were so shocking. Stay behind the jab, AJ. Stay behind the jab. Like, what do you think this knockout's going to fall into his lap? You've got to go after him at some point.
Absolutely.
It was never. They never forced the issue the way he did with Pulev and all these other fighters. But
like you said, it's a risk for sure. But what do you have to lose now? Your belts aren't there. Yeah. You have to go and rip to the body of Usyk. Rip him to the body. The smaller man in there, coming up from cruiser. The body is a bit of a weakness if you have one on Usyk. Rip him. And it's not as easy as just me saying, hey, go rip his body. Obviously, Usyk's slick. Obviously, he's got a nice jab. He can, like you said, change levels, move off the center line. You're not going to catch him still. He's not going to stand in front of you.
His feet, in terms of closing the distance, I think he's the best heavyweight in the world, especially because when he was stepping in with that backhand, AJ was just getting shook. Like, where the fuck did that come from? Because he's in and out so beautifully.
And he feints AJ, and he'll freeze you, right? Yeah. He feints in between your timing, and he freezes you. Yeah, and it's hard to predict because
he's like constantly touching you as well. Their style is it's not as much sharpshooting the way AJ is sort of trying to get you, like the Terminator. Like Usyk's always touching you. He's always touching you, and it almost becomes like a habit that you can't allow him to get into. When he gets that near you, like you say, blast him to the body and be like, "Don't fucking come near me, prick." Yeah. You know,
seriously, he's gonna have to. Like, it's gonna have to be AJ taking precedence here. He's going to have to go on the front foot and meet him. And you might even have to try to chase Usyk down a bit here because he is slick and he's not going to stay in front of you and get in a firefight.
There's been a lot of talk about the chin of AJ because of those wobbles that we've seen him have. And I'm not suggesting that he's got a bad chin, but if he does, or if it's questionable to the degree that some people have said it is, we'll find out, because for this game plan, it surely means with the new coach they've got that coach
Robert Garcia in his camp.
Yeah, that style that he's employing is going to have to be take a punch to give a couple, and when you're marching someone down, you need to have that like ability to do that. So if there's any issues with AJ's chin, this is the fight we'll see him out cold. Like this, it'll either work and he wins by knockout, or he will be out cold, in my opinion. I don't see any middle ground here.
Yeah.
I think we're in for a fucking treat here, because knowing someone has to pull the trigger, it makes it exciting, because we're all going to be sitting there going, when is he going to do it? When is he going to do it? And what I like about Usyk is he's a bag of tricks as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Usyk runs out in that first round and tries to beat him to the punch and create. Yeah, because Usyk has a thing in his head that AJ doesn't, where Usyk kind of knows, I can push the pace of this fight and know my recovery will come back before yours does. Genetically, he's just got that. And when I watched the 12 rounds back, that was one of the most, that is the fittest I've ever seen a heavyweight at the elite level. Like, the amount of fucking feints and the footwork and the constant throwing the jab out there, the energy that he expelled in that, like, no wonder AJ was drowning at the end, because there's just no way to keep up with that.
There was no drop off in his explosion when he showed it, right? He was playing the pity pat, and then he would fire that left hand down the pipe, and it was the same in round one.
The commentators are saying early on you'll see the speed of Usyk, but eventually the speed will go, and that's when AJ will take over. And like, it was round 10 and he's just still fucking foot to the fucking floor, mate. It was amazing. One fighter who I want to end on is Nate Diaz. We've spoken about the way UFC treat their fighters. This guy's been stuck in limbo, clearly wanting to go and fight Jake Paul and make a fuck ton of money.
He's not hiding that anymore.
Yeah, and fair play. I mean, why bother? Because that's clearly why the UFC have got their foot on Nate Diaz's neck and not allowing him to make a living. He obviously didn't do the Khamzat fight, which I think, given Nate's stage of his career, is just such a, like, it's not the best way to treat a guy who's bled for you for so many years at this point. You've got an up-and-coming fighter who's trying to fight for a title. Nate is more of a veteran legend at this point. And you're saying, but then Nate literally was the fight that got the title shot done for
Leon Edwards. Yeah,
that's the one. Sorry, for Leon Edwards, and like, he rocked Leon right at the end of that, and Leon's like one of the sharpshooters of that division, and then afterwards, because you had Dana talking up Nate Diaz when it suited him, and now Dana's going, well, you know, Nate's only won one fight in the last 5 years, so maybe a Jake Paul fight does make sense. And I'm like, the guy was good enough for you to. This guy's bled for your company and been one of the backbones to build a company like the UFC. Without a Nate Diaz selling against Conor McGregor, like, you might not get the big sale that you got. Like this,
you don't get 4.2 bill without those two fights.
You know, Conor needed a dance partner. So for Dana to talk down on Nate Diaz like that, and I'm not even a Nate Diaz fan particularly, but the lack of respect from Dana, I thought, was a bit disappointing. I thought myself, like, I get if you've had some personal beef, but you're a man who's made 400, 500 million or whatever it is at this stage off of these fighters, and people like Nate Diaz massively contributed to that. And for you to just sort of spit on his record after he's been good enough for you for all these years, I thought it's distasteful, really.
Yeah. Well, listen, Dana is the king of calling his current champion the greatest ever, right? When you're fighting for him, you're the greatest ever. When you leave him...
Tyron Woodley being the best example of that, probably, yeah.
Woodley, Ben Askren, like, we've seen it. And to be fair, you know, Dana does have points. You know, Nate is not what Nate maybe was at a certain point, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing to say Nate shouldn't be fighting guys like Khamzat Chimaev, which they tried to put him in there.
But so they're trying to, he was good enough to be the basically number one contender fight for Leon. He's good enough probably to be the number one contender fight for Khamzat Chimaev. Nate isn't fighting bums. Nate's fighting murderers row here. Like, so when you say he hasn't got a win, all right, I get that. But who the fuck's he been in there with? Like Masvidal during during his absolute peak of his career. Like, you didn't give him one gimme fight. Like, and you see the way people like Diego Sanchez, did you hear that? That was it a phone call or an interview he gave where he broke down in tears like, Dana, I fucking died for this company basically. And people like Randy Couture, a guy who I might not even be an MMA fan, like watching his fights when he fought Tim Sylvia. This guy was the guy. And they built the UFC off of him. He fought Brock Lesnar when the guy was 45 years old in a natural 205er, like one of the toughest motherfuckers ever lived. And he was a classic case of someone who went from GOAT status to yesterday's news and just a nobody now. And because Dana had a bit of a disappointing thing with him because he wanted to get his money or whatever. And yeah, I think what they've done to Nate Diaz is bang out of order when everything he's given for that company, I get you don't want to make your competitors stronger, but it's not like he's going to go over where can he go? He just wants to make some cash with Jake Paul. It ain't going to hurt the UFC. It ain't going to change anything for the UFC. Why do you care when you're Dana White, you've made all this hundreds of millions, and it's bothering you that Nate Diaz might go off and make 10 million with Jake Paul? Like, are you really that bitter?
It's either that Nate is the only thing I can see logically would be the reason is if they're planning a Conor and Nate fight and they want to get that one, and then they're like, okay, after that go do it, because there's no doubt about it that there's so much money to be made with Nate and Conor still. But when you start saying things like, well, he should go fight Jake Paul, well, why the fuck would anyone want to then come back and go, yeah, let's watch Nate and Conor, but Dana just shit on Nate, telling him he couldn't win a fight. Yeah,
you can't pivot now. You've put him in the bargain bin.
You can't say that he needs to go fight Jake, and that's a skill for skill level when Conor's coming back, and then go, maybe we'll put him in there with Conor, because now you've, without saying it, said that Conor's a bargain shopper now too.
It's been a good chat, Wade. I appreciate you coming on the Pain Game, brother.
No, I appreciate it. Like I said, man, we've been working on this since I think 2020. When you discovered little old W.A.D.E concept back in the day.
I discovered you way before most people.
Yeah, it was you and it was Sensei that you reached out really early, and I like I said, man, it's a blessing to be here because, believe it or not, 5 years ago I was sitting in a bedroom, something like this, watching your videos, man. I was watching when you did the podcast with Michael Bisping. I was back then, I was watching that stuff, and I was like, man, this guy, I want to do that, So anybody, and I know you get comments and stuff, and people, I think people forget who the fuck you really are in this scene. People, let me just remind you, there, like I said when I came on here, there's no W.A.D.E concept without True Geordie.
Yeah, but you're likable, man. You're likable. I'm an arsehole. But
no, man,
I appreciate it. And look, mate, at the end of the day, with or without inspiration, I rate everything you do, and it's always nice when someone you enjoy their videos also likes your videos. So tip of the cap from both ends, mate. You're a legend, and I'm pretty sure we'll work with each other at some point.
I think you're right about that.
This has been the first episode between me and Wade, but I'm pretty sure we're going to do more. If you want more, do let us know in the comments, and we can make this a fairly regular thing, hopefully. I'd love to have Wade on plenty more, and to catch up on the Combat Sports Chat. Don't forget to check out the W.A.D.E Concept YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description below. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.